One of the main disclaimers I'm going to make here at the start, I'm not going to worry about if people are actually in watching it because that's the nature of Twitch. People come and go, but if you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching the VOD afterward, remember, watch responsibly. Even things that you agree with, things that I say, I want you to challenge them at every possible opportunity. Do not just mindlessly absorb information that might be objectionable to you, because it can kind of work some things in the background where you start to go, wait, they might have a point. But remember, you have to actually actively challenge it to make sure that those things don't happen. Again, especially when you're watching content that you may agree with, and especially when you disagree with. Just do it in general. Please just don't mindlessly consume political content. Even when I do it while I'm playing games, I'm actively pausing and arguing it, even when I'm not streaming. So, that being said, Hypocrite is our focus today. We're starting here just because I wanted to start in the general, somewhat reasonable conservative who has very traditional conservative beliefs when it comes to social choices. So, as you can see, showing what we'd call not traditionally attractive or not passing trans people. Femboy Jesus? I don't know, is that what that's supposed to be? Stop middle-aged white women rapping. I watched this, and he did some body shaming in it. Just like, no, the rap wasn't good, but why are you body shaming people? It's kind of odd. The Daily Cope. Yeah. Is this a trans person? I don't understand. Because it's supposed to be objectionable in some way, right? Debating a transgender. You know what? I feel like that's a good place to start. Let's hop in.
Yes. All right. We're live. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for showing up. I'm here with Steph. And Steph, so I'll just intro how we got here. I put out a video a while ago. I gotta not look at the chat for a sec. Hold on. I put out a video about fake disorder cringe about a month ago. Recently, it was blessed in the YouTube algorithm. It broke out of my normal little sandbox. And Steph saw the video and said that they wanted to debate me because I didn't believe in gender dysphoria. Now, I explained that's not true. I never claimed I don't believe in gender dysphoria. And then Steph said, well, debate me anyway. Now, you're not the first person to essentially be like, debate me, Chud. And then I'll say, okay, what's the topic? And they'll say, I don't know. What do you believe in? Like, name something you believe in and I'll debate you on that. Usually I don't entertain this, but I thought I would give you a chance. Now, I thought of a proposition this afternoon.
For sure.
I don't want to like ambush you with this, but I'll bounce it off you and you let me know what you think about this. My proposition is that transgender people should shut the hell up about misgendering, because misgendering is...
All right, let's start here. So, you'll often hear people on the right talk about the trans people who get mad about misgendering. And a big cause for concern is not misgendering in and of itself. It's intentionally continuing to misgender, especially outside of gender-neutral pronouns. So, for instance, if you find out that someone is a trans woman, refusing to use she, her, it's probably less severe if you use they, them. But if you're intentionally misgendering someone because you're aware that they are in transition, have transitioned, and the like, then it becomes a bit more objectionable. But that's where a lot of people on the right say, they use the example of, the SJW cringe from back in the day. Excuse me, I'm a woman, and then, how dare you misgender me, even though the person presents extremely masculine, and a lot of times people will be apologetic when they do accidentally misgender someone. So, again, make sure you're remaining critical of those viewpoints.
Part of the gender ideology, and in order for you to be misgendering someone, you have to have bought into that ideology in the first place. So to complain about a person who is not using somebody else's preferred pronouns is kind of similar to a Christian complaining that an atheist isn't going to church, or a vegan complaining that a meat eater is eating meat or something like that. It's like, look, you have your ideology, you have your things that you believe, but I don't participate in that.
Okay, I mean, that's...
I'm wondering if this is going to go into a conversation of human decency, and the social utility of pronouns, but we'll see.
More than fair to kind of see it as if it's an ideology, but do you believe that there's a difference between gender and sex, or do you think they're the exact same thing?
I don't think gender exists, so they're different in that. That's
the first time I heard that.
Well, so it depends how you want to define it, right? If you want to define gender as being a synonym for sex, then fair enough. But the way it's defined in gender ideology is different from sex, but I don't buy into that. I reject it as it's just something that I don't believe, right? In the same way that an atheist might reject God. That's how I feel about the concept of gender.
So is his belief that pronouns only relate to sex? I don't know, that's such an odd statement that, gender doesn't exist. Well, wait, but alright, if you don't want to call it gender, what do you want to call these aspects? It's secondary, right? Secondary sexual characteristics. The way that we present that don't actually relate to your genetics or the way you're born or your biological reality, blah, 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 blah. These things exist. Gender is just the label that we tend to put on that, right? So what do you call it when we tend to relate that people with long hair tend to be women? What do you call it when you have people with facial hair tend to be men? And certain figures and certain attitudes. And thank you, Jordan. I'm glad you're here. Come learn about sex and gender with us. But that's kind of funny. I don't think it exists. When I'm wondering, okay, I'm not going to prescribe any positions to him because I don't 100% know Hypocrite. Or is this Hypocrite? I don't know, who is this guy? It's Hypocrite on the screen right now, right? Maybe not? I don't know. Well, I have long hair and facial hair. Yes, Jordan, congratulations. It's the bimodal distribution. It's often we relate to, I guess long hair isn't as good of an example as it used to be. People who wear lipstick to have bright red lips tend to be women. That tends to be much more common. People who wear makeup and everything, right? But what do you call that if you're going to reject the existence of gender to begin with? I guess is more my point, but let's get into it.
Okay, so have you possibly seen any of the studies around, the differences between gender and sex and things like that? I have many links I could link to if you need.
Why don't you tell us what the difference is between gender and sex?
Well, gender is essentially just an identity. It's more so essentially secondary sex characteristics. There's quite a few things that go
Based, I got the words right.
into gender. If you...
Are you talking about stereotyping genders? Jordan, genders are a stereotype. That's kind of the whole point behind genders is... Okay. Oh, fuck. So this gets into the whole conversation of if you take... What do you mean based on what? If you take a man, or let's say a trans man, right? And you put them in a society where all the characteristics that secondary characteristics that tend to relate to women, you said based, so I'm asking based on. No, Tyler, it was a joke. It's not that based. It wasn't that brave of a take. But if you, there's this idea that if you take some trans people and put them in other societies where the characteristics match their assigned gender, or yeah, I guess they're assigned at birth, whether you want to call it sex or gender, whatever, that they then, in that society, wouldn't be considered trans or wouldn't experience gender dysphoria. So the stereotyping of genders is, a lot of people don't like to bite that bullet, but it's something that's actually very important in this talk. Also, how do you guys like the new camera? I changed the camera up.
If you want me to break it down, I can, but I feel like we'd be here for like half an hour. Not a big issue. I can do that. It's just I was under the impression that you believe that there's no difference between the two when there is empirical
Yeah, I wonder if I can dim that. Oh, I can't right now, but
data backing up that they are different things.
Well, no,
look, Tyler, we're exploring the alt-right pipeline. All right, everything's red in here. It's not my fault. I can't change it.
there's no such thing as gender. You just said yourself it's an identity. That's
Right.
That's the same as saying that it's a belief. So that's what I mean.
Yeah. Okay, and now it looks like he's going to get into the it's not real, therefore it doesn't matter. Well, if you want to make that argument, let's go with marriage isn't real. We constructed that. Let's talk about race. Race technically isn't real. There are aspects of it that we assign to it. Or sorry, I don't like how he's using the word real. What he's trying to say is it's socially constructed. Therefore, why should it matter? But there are other things that are socially constructed. Certain qualities of race, that has changed over time, right? We talk about institutions such as marriage, government, religions. They're all constructed, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist and that they don't matter.
When I say it's an ideology, you're saying that gender is based off of what a.
Now, Tyler, it's socially constructed. So that's why I said I didn't like the fact that he used the word real, because when we talk about race, well, what a white person is has changed over time. Like, Irish people used to be called reverse N-words, or inverted N-words, like, and certain people, like, I've heard, like, Hassan give the take of, how could you not call me white? Look at me, blah, 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 blah. Well, wait, no, but dude, back in the day, you wouldn't have been considered white. If you guys have ever seen what Destiny looks like, Destiny wouldn't have been white back in the day, right? The way that we view race has changed over time because they're categories that we apply certain characteristics to. Kind of like when we talk about gender with the secondary sex characteristics, there are racial characteristics that we relate to being white. In the modern day, it tends to be a lot more about skin color than it does any other characteristic, but there are still groups of people, such as certain neo-Nazis. I know Nick Fuentes has really talked about, you take a genetic test, and that genetic test determines whether you're white or not. But wait, that wouldn't work back in the day. You had to look at somebody, and even then, just looking at an Irish person, they maybe didn't look that different from well, actually, Italians are a bad example, because I don't think they were considered white for a long time either. So, but,
individual believes. So that's not
No,
something
as in
that's
there's
based in
factual
empirical
evidence
reality.
backing the existence of gender.
Okay, what is the
If that makes
factual
sense.
evidence?
I don't know why they're trying to cite studies. That doesn't really make sense to me, because if I'm trying to convince someone that something is real, how about you get them to admit that they already have a belief that this thing is real, rather than try to say that scientists say it's real, therefore it is. Because, especially when I guess this is getting more into rhetorical strategy than actual facts or logic or anything, but if you're going to try to convince someone that a certain category exists, and they say it straight up isn't real, just saying that somebody else says it's real, or that it's a consensus, isn't going to convince them, because it's not you're not making a factual argument. They're making more of a feelings argument. So you're going to want to provide evidence of where this category exists currently, and I guess a good example. I guess the example I always hear is you go into a restaurant, you have to describe someone, and you describe them as a man or a woman, and you're trying to get the waiter to lead you to this person. Now, the problem is if you have someone who, let's say like Steph's, who clearly presents a bit more feminine, most people, especially if she's going out and really dressing up, right, she's going to pass far more feminine than she is masculine. And then when you go to try to describe, it's a man that looks like this, this, and that, you're just going to confuse the waiter more than anything. And that's the way that I think that would be a good example of how to apply gender in real life, gender versus sex. And despite the fact that Steph's gender and sex don't match up, that using the explanation of what her gender is could more easily lead the hostess to her, right?
Well, when I say factual evidence backing the existence of gender, I'm mainly referring to secondary sex characteristics and how we've seen them applied in history.
So secondary sex characteristics, like the fact that women have breasts, for example, would that be a secondary?
Right. Well, a secondary sex characteristic could be as simple as long hair or hips, you know?
Why are you going with physical, like more biologically based ones? Because, well, the long hair one, that's definitely a choice. Breast and hip shape is not as much of a decision and definitely hasn't been historically. Don't use that as an example. Makeup would be a better example. Clothing decisions would be a better example.
Well, no. So you can't determine someone's sex based on their hair length, but if they have breasts, then you know it's
no 100%. You can't determine somebody's sex based off of their hair length. That's 100% correct. But you can make inferences on somebody's gender identity based off.
So I guess this is gonna be the point of this video, is that Steph just kind of trapped herself, right? Well, hair length, yeah, but when we talk about breasts and hips, that tends to be, I don't know why we call that secondary sex characteristics. It doesn't make sense because it's not based on choice or anything like that. But when we talk about breasts and hips, well, wait, no, that definitely relates to your biological sex, so don't use those as an example. And then definitely people who already kind of have these values and are just listening to this in the background go, yeah, Hypocrite's right, because this, and that. Because they agree, oh, wait, you're talking about biological characteristics. Well, biologically, this person's a man or a woman. You need to give examples that kind of further the point of, yeah, but it's not all about your biological body. There's secondary characteristics that we use to present ourselves.
Of some of the secondary sex.
And specifically, that's the explanation for why gender exists. Obviously, convincing someone that trans people are valid and everything like that's going to be a step deeper, but if we're going from the initial standpoint that the person doesn't believe in gender in general, well,
characteristics. So say somebody looks very feminine, you could probably safely make the assumption most of the time that they most likely identify as a woman, you know?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I get it, okay. But you're identifying as a woman doesn't make you a woman. So that's where the ideology
No, it doesn't change my sex, no.
Exactly. So that's where
it doesn't change my sex. I don't think any trans person has been implying. My bad, I apologize.
No, it's okay. I just to finish my thought. If a person doesn't buy into this idea that gender identities are real, then there's no sense haranguing them to be like, hey, I'm a woman, you have to call me a woman, because I already gave the examples. It's like those other things I said, right? And you're not convincing me that gender is real because you're using like sex characteristics, which are...
Wait, he just understood. He understood the difference between sex characteristics. Bring it home, Stephs. Let's go.
Sort of empirical biological aspects of human beings to argue that gender identity is real, but there's a leap there, there's a connection there that I'm not seeing.
So technically, yes, everything is a societal construct. Not everything, but gender specifically is a societal construct. It's based off of what we see regarding different characteristics of people, especially, usually genitals being one of them. Okay. And secondary sex characteristics would go along with that. Different things like facial hair, other things like that. Like I'm assuming you would identify as a man, right?
I wouldn't
Or
use
a,
that.
or a male.
I am a man, right? I wouldn't use that phrasing.
So you're a man.
I am a man, but I can
Okay.
empirically like show you how I got to that conclusion. Like,
Can
lots
you
of things-
define?
Again, use the example of facial hair. A lot of women tend to not be able to grow facial hair, especially to the extent that he has on his face right now. You need to use other characteristics that aren't related in any biological way. So the choice of having long hair, the choice of wearing a dress versus a suit, the choice of glasses styles, right? The choice of even just clothing. There are different cuts for men and women because it presents your body in a different way.
Man?
Yeah, I will in a sec, but I just want to respond to what you said about the
100%.
social construct. Lots of things are social constructs, but not all social constructs are created equal. Gender. Unicorns and fairies are social constructs, right? But they don't actually exist. That's kind of the key
100%.
thing. Virginity is one that I see come up on the odd. I watch a lot of like progressive TikTok videos and stuff like that. So I've seen ones where they say, "Oh, virginity is a social construct and we should get rid of it because it's not something we actually need to care about." But like virginity is something whether you care about it or not. It's based in physical.
Wait, so he's understanding the fact that just because it's a social construct doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So this is where Steph should be stepping in and explaining, wait, no, you're right. But here's how gender is a social construct, but here is how it's real and affects us on a day-to-day basis.
Physical reality, whether or not you've committed those acts, that's something that could be objectively known.
Yes, but it's subjective where we draw the line. If I put my finger in someone, does that make me not a virgin? If someone sucks my dick, does that make me not a virgin? In some places, yes. If you look at Mormons, for instance, they have soaking. We make fun of soaking all the time because we find it silly, but they consider it that if a girl sits on you and then the bed moves and that makes you move, but you're not doing it intentionally, you're still technically a virgin. So, yes, it's a societal construct. Yes, it's real. Here is the application of it on your day-to-day life.
Whereas when it comes to gender,
Also, I thought I was muted for a second. I was gonna fucking freak because
it's more like the unicorns and fairies in that there's no way to empirically determine a person's gender.
Would you not say that people make inferences?
Wait, I think I'd agree with this to some extent. The empirical nature of gender, that's actually a pretty damn good question. But I think it's outside the purview of where the discussion is so far. Because I feel like that's super nuanced, and you can't really have that conversation until you get someone to agree that gender exists. It might be a societal construct, but it's real.
On gender based off of what they see on their sex?
Well,
like specifically at birth.
So if they believe in gender, then they do those things. I make inferences about people's sex based on what I see because I don't believe in gender. So when I am looking at a person and trying to determine who or what I'm dealing with, the concept of gender doesn't really occur to me. I'm just thinking.
I thought that super chat was to me, and then I was like, wait, I'm not on YouTube. Okay. There's a major problem that I have with this line of thinking, though. Because, what about someone... you know what? Let me actually get up an example. Just because this is the example that everybody knows. Blair White, right? What does it matter whether or not she has a penis or not? Why does that affect your perception of her gender? Because you look at this person, you're going to go, oh, that person has a vagina. And then I actually don't know if she's had bottom surgery or not, but whether she has or not, that answer is irrelevant to how you should probably refer to this person. And that's kind of more the point.
Like, who is this person? What sex are they, you know?
Yeah, that's more than fair. So I asked you earlier to define man, and you said you would define that for me. Would you do that?
Yeah, a man is a adult male human, right? And a woman would be an adult human female.
Sounds like a tin can's going through. Everything all right?
So a man is an adult human male,
Mm-hmm.
and a woman is an adult human female. And then we can, if we wanted to determine whether or not someone was a man or a woman, there's all of what you already mentioned, the secondary sex characteristics. There's chromosomes at the deepest level, and then you have gonads, and it's.
Wait, what about people who are like XXY? What about back in the day? They couldn't determine your sex based on your chromosomes. It would have been just on your genitals, right? What about people who are intersex? Where do they fall?
Etc.
Yeah, so man and woman are descriptor terms for gender, not sex.
That's what you say, but you know that.
Wait, but if I ever put Blair White in front of you and you had no idea what their genitals are, there is no world where you would ever call Blair White a man, right? Like, oh my god, I especially hate, there's the clip of, hold on, I might actually try to find it. It's a clip of Ben Shapiro. I'll let this go while I look for it.
That was not a thing like 20 years ago, right? That's a very new belief system that's been put forward by progressives who have decided this is the way it should be. So you say that man and woman refer to gender, but I disagree. I think that those actually refer to sex, which is how it was for thousands of years until the last 20 years.
Right. So as we learn new things and we progress in society, we kind of science.
I'll just bring this up real quick.
Woman from Orange is the New Black.
I never watched that show.
I've never watched that show either, but she's on the cover of Time magazine.
Oh.
Or he's on the cover of Time magazine.
It's almost as if it doesn't make sense to use he in that context.
Sciences progress as well, and they're.
Well, this actually brings up a question, because can't men have? Fuck, I'm gonna fuck this up. XX chromosomes. Females carry 2 X chromosomes. Yeah. Okay. So aren't there rare instances where I mean like males, like they have a penis. They're born with a penis, but they have XX chromosomes, and they present masculine in every way possible. Well, let's say this person goes through full transition and becomes, I guess you would call them a trans woman. Let's say this person becomes a woman. Wait, so the only thing that changed was their genitals. Their chromosomes didn't change. Would you still consider this a trans person? Or are they just a woman? That's where, like, I feel like this definition falls apart so much. It's like, I don't think you care about the genetics of somebody. I don't think you care if they have a penis or vagina, because in most instances, you don't check that.
Able to figure out things that layman's people like us wouldn't be able to figure out as easily, you know? I'm definitely glad we got smart people like that doing that instead of.
Well, I don't think
you
gender is scientific. I'm not convinced of that. I think it's ideological. The onus would be on you to prove to me that it's scientific. People are saying, or Vito says, bump my. Let me know if the audio's okay in the chat, if we're balanced and stuff like that. I can get up on it a little bit closer if that helps. So, like I said, you're calling it scientific. I'm calling it ideological. If you wanted to convince me that it's scientific, you would have to show me the empirical evidence.
Yeah, I'll gladly link you some studies afterwards if you like.
Well,
Absolutely.
you can't just tell me what the empirical evidence is.
Again, this is one of the major problems that I have with Steph. She's trying to argue that there is scientific evidence behind it. Well, you're not there yet. He's not ready to take that evidence yet. You need to convince him of the social construct, that social construct is real, and that he uses it in the way that you're trying to apply it on a regular basis.
Of gender?
Yeah.
I mean, there's quite a lot that goes into it. I mean,
Well, can you tell me anything that isn't actually just an?
I really want to talk with somebody like this, and I just want to. This is gonna sound really weird, but I want to get a collection of a bunch of people who are trans, or not trans, just and randomly like shuffle them around and be like, this person, are they a man or a woman? Are they male or female? Do they have a penis or vagina? What are their chromosomes? And have them answer it for every single person and just watch how many they get wrong. Because I know, like, I used to be anti-trans. Like, I used to be super transphobic because I knew like the conservative boogeyman trans people in high school. Like, one was a piece of shit who got mad when, sorry, I think I just fucked up their genders, or their pronouns, but he came out in high school and presented as a woman for so long, and then got mad when nobody knew that his pronouns changed to he, him, that he actually preferred that. And then I knew someone who was lesbian, and then came out as a man, and then denies either of those things ever happening, and basically did it like attention seeking. Like, they were the conservative boogeymans. But then I go and I start working my job, and I work with this guy for like 2 years, and he's the chillest, just nicest guy. And then I find out he's trans. Wasn't part of his identity in any way. He just told me he's a man. I said, cool, right? And in no circumstance would someone ever look at this guy and go, oh, you're a woman. Like, that would be so wild to me. And I wish that people could have that perspective without needing to meet a trans person, not know they're trans for a long time, and then find out they're trans. Like, and especially with high-profile trans people, you can't do that, because the moment I show you Blair White, you're like, oh, that's whatever you're gonna say based on the preconceptions that you're going into in this conversation. Like, oh no, I know Blair White is a male. Like, no, dude, look at this person. You would never call this person a man. What are you doing? Like, you saw this person on the street. You're only saying it's a man or a male because you already know that Blair White is trans? Like, what?
A sex trait.
so gender is itself a societal construct. So therefore, there's not going to be any empirical evidence around a societal construct that's purely...
So that's not scientific then. That's ideological. That's cultural / ideological, right? It's not scientific.
Do you believe in different forms of sciences?
When it comes
No,
to
I mean,
social
like-
science, I'm not really.
I mean,
a
like,
fan. I'm not really a
psychology
fan
and
of
things
social
like that.
I think you
science,
got
if
what
that's
you
what you're
meant.
getting at.
Like psychology and things like
I
that.
believe in psychology as a practice, sure,
Okay, well, so
as a discipline.
that practice is mainly rooted on things going on in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so if gender is a societal construct based off of feelings, things going on in your head,
Bro, just challenge him on if he saw somebody in a dress with tits and long hair, what would he call that person? Straight up, like, just show him a picture of Blair White and be like, what do you call this person? You see them on the street. Maybe not Blair White. Maybe someone less high profile. Someone who doesn't know.
people have studied people with gender dysphoria for quite a while now. Trans people have been around for a long time, or cross-dressers, they probably would have called them back then.
Sure, and this is why I don't deny the existence of gender dysphoria as it's commonly understood, which is, a mental illness where you think you're the wrong sex.
Right, so why would we need to treat something that's just an ideology?
What about trans people who don't want to have bottom surgery? What if they recognize that they're the right sex or whatever? What if you have a trans woman 100% okay with the fact that she has a penis, enjoys her penis, likes her penis, and has no dysphoria over their penis, just over they feel something physically wrong with them when they present masculine? What do you do in that circumstance?
Well, that's a
Fuck, I feel like they're jumping all over. I think Steph's doing a very, very bad job of just defining what characteristics are based on gender versus sex and then going from there, and they keep skipping past that. I would hold him to it.
mental illness. There's a difference between an ideology and a mental illness. So, but some people are
How can you have an illness based off of an ideology is what I was trying to lead to. I apologize.
Well, it's because it's a mental illness. That's how you could have all kinds of mental illness based off of all kinds of strange beliefs, right? Or I mean, I'm not an expert. I don't know what causes it. If we knew what caused,
Steph needs to hold him to, I feel dysphoria because of X, Y, and Z on my body. None of it has to relate to my ideology. This dysphoria exists even outside. Because, all right, to bring it back to the example I used earlier, you take a trans man, put him in another society, that all the characteristics that they like to present as, are they still trans? There are some... One of the reasons people don't like talking about this is because there are trans people who feel dysphoria with their genitals. Fuck. See, this is why I hate that this word is like so what's the word, taboo, but you'd call that, I feel like, I don't know why, I mean I kind of get it because this word used to be, I'm just gonna say it, so transsexual people versus transgender people, and people don't like using that word because there's a lot of bad history with the use of that word, and history of cross-dressers and transvestites and everything like that. But I feel like it's important to note that, okay, we can take a transgender person, put them in another society, and maybe they won't feel that dysphoria anymore. But if someone feels dysphoria specifically because of their genitals, and their primary sexual characteristics, such as the biology of their body, we put them in another society, that dysphoria is not going to go away.
that we'd be better at treating it than we are, right?
I'm pretty sure what causes it is just gender incongruence, and the treatment is taking HRT and transitioning.
I'm not convinced. I think it's caused by like porn and anime and Discord and TikTok. I think if we banned all these things,
None of those things existed when trans people existed in the past.
then we'd be getting to the root and treating the symptom, which is transgenderism.
I mean, I'm not the youngest either.
He's acknowledging the existence of gender dysphoria, so maybe we should, like, build a bridge from there. I don't know, because I think we're both agreeing that it exists. I think we're just disagreeing on what the treatment should be. So maybe throw a life raft from there.
But I definitely don't think TikTok is the case, per se. Do you have any?
I'm trying to.
Anything other than
I got a
TikTok?
little distracted in the joke there. I'm trying to remember where we actually were in the conversation. It was, the gender dysphoria and the mental illness. I guess I don't really have any more thoughts on that. Like I agree that there's people who feel that way and who want to be the opposite sex, or they might use the term gender.
Yeah, Tyler, if you're still there, are you down for Phasmo at 7?
But I
Also, Jordan, if you're still there, when will you be home?
don't know about
Yo, let's go.
like so nobody knows really what causes it, and nobody really knows how to treat it either.
We know how to treat it.
The results have been not good, right?
Wait, he's saying treat it as in get rid of the gender dysphoria. I think this is a miscommunication here. Steph says, we know how to treat it. We let them be trans. I don't think they're on the same page here.
Just because we have a treatment that might be prescribed by the majority consensus of psychologists or whatever in certain conditions doesn't mean that it's a good treatment, right? We used to use leech.
Fuck, and I've actually talked about this before. And I think sometimes I say it in a pretty problematic way, where I say we need to disassociate genitals from gender, because if we disassociate genitals from gender, then we have less people wanting to get gender confirmation surgery, where they want to change their genitals. Personally, I think that's a plus, because there are people who are probably like trans women who have a penis and then go, oh shit, I can never have kids of my own. And that, I feel like that kind of sucks for them. But also, I think if we disillusion, if you will, the genitals from gender, we're going to tend to have more people satisfied with their current imposition. What the fuck, dude? Why do I look so fucking red? There we go. Thank you. But if you have people who are like so upset with just because their genitals aren't the right genitals, well, if there's something that societally we can do to fix that and it be less of an issue, then yeah, I think that's pretty cool. However, then we do run into the trap of, what about people who have gender dysphoria because of their sex, their sex, their primary sexual characteristics, not just because, oh, I have a penis, but I like to wear dresses. And that's where I'm gonna kind of get caught up right now. So I think that's something I need to think about for myself, but I think it's something we should all think about more. And especially conservatives, when they argue against trans people and say it's going against biology. Well, wait, if the only thing we're changing is secondary sex characteristics, it has nothing to do with biology, that argument goes away. Which I would love if I could stop hearing that argument, because it's really fucking annoying. And it's especially some of the counter arguments for it, I feel are kind of, they fucking hate on non-binary people, right? When you're talking about, oh, well, these characteristics exist and blah, 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 it's on a bimodal distribution. Well, wait, now you're leaving out intersex people. You're kind of leaving out non-binary people, and that kind of fucking sucks. And I know, I'm not saying that people who make those arguments are necessarily against non-binary or intersex people, but I think it's actually easier to make an argument to conservatives for non-binary people and intersex people, and then shift them. Well, I guess you don't need to make an argument for intersex people. I'm sure conservatives are fine with their existence because it's natural or whatever. But when we talk about non-binary people, wait, no, you're probably more okay with this. All we're asking is that you use non-binary pronouns, and these people don't necessarily want to change anything about their physical body. They just want to wear what they want to wear, dude. Like, what the fuck is the big problem with that? But again, the way we present the arguments, do we want to ease conservatives over, or do we want to get them over accepting of male to female, female to male, and then worry about non-binary later? I mean, fuck, we talk about non-binary and bisexual and pansexual hate all the time on the internet, so fuck, I don't know. That's something that just hits close to home for me, is the whole non-binary and the whole, well, if you're transgender, you're not necessarily going to want to have gender confirmation surgery.
And give people lobotomies and stuff like that. And at that time, people would have said that those are good treatments, but in hindsight, we know that they weren't.
Actually, recently learned about this. Most people, it was very quick that scientists went, nope, lobotomy's bad, so that's not a good example.
Well, for instance, we know in the case of transgenderism, people since the 80s have been taking puberty blockers, and it's been known to be effective. If you want to talk about trans children, that's there. The effective treatment is transition, and with societal change, it wouldn't be as difficult to have trans people around if people were more accepting. You know, people would be less likely to feel not happy with their neighbors, if that makes sense.
I don't know how you define like an effective treatment, because we know that transgender people have high suicide rates even after.
We have high suicide rates because people hate trans people. That's the problem. I don't think it has anything to do with the treatment.
Transitioning. So
That's because of the societal acceptance issue.
Well,
a lot of people tend to not see them as the gender that they are afterwards, and that kind of leads to the whole thing. It's people that end up denying gender as a whole, even though it does have, fact-based evidence behind it. Again, I'll link you the studies afterwards. That'd be a lot easier for me. Using a phone.
People are complaining about the audio again. I'm just trying to check my.
I'm not too low, am I?
Here. No, they're saying I'm too low. Let me turn that off. There. Is it better now, guys? All right. Look, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to sit here and argue about how to treat people with gender dysphoria. I'll leave that. I'm happy to leave that up to the professionals. My proposition, though, is that
socialism is a failed system. Wow, great. Thanks, Rob Lord. What great context you bring to this conversation about trans people. But if you want to discuss socialism, I'm not inherently for or against it. So why don't you tell me how socialism failed?
That gender is an ideology, and people should be allowed to opt out of that if they want. But it doesn't seem like transgendered people are happy to let people opt out of this whole belief system.
I think if people...
Let me read. The belief that a small group of people in a nation's capital can run their citizens' lives better than they can is ridiculous. That goes to show you don't know what socialism is, but what you just described is a controlled market communist society, not a market socialist society.
People were more willing to...
No, Tyler, no, it does not. America is not a planned economy in any way whatsoever. Does the capital have influence over it? Yes, but that's not inherently a bad thing.
Opt out of this belief system, the X gender marker would be a lot easier to pass in some states.
So, X meaning like people who don't identify as a gender?
Right. You're saying people don't believe in the ideology. It would be a lot easier to just throw it all away in general.
Well, you can't.
Why hasn't the X passed in more states?
I mean, it depends on what you think a driver's license and like identifying like that is for, right? Because there's certain places where you can't just throw away.
Okay, Scrublord, I think you are greatly mistaken on what socialism is. America in no way is a socialist society. When we talk about market socialism, we talk about socializing corporations. So we talk about making them cooperatives, like forced cooperatives. America does not force any company to become a cooperative. However, if you're talking about social democracy and using social systems to try to help the lives of its citizens, or control it if that's your perspective, that is way different than calling it a socialist society. Are those real guns or fake? No? They're there. I think they're real. They're toys, if that's what you're asking. But, no, they're real. But I prefer if we'd stay on topic. So, trans people or socialism? Sure, let's talk about that. Serious money on the fake answer. Wait, what? Serious money on the fake answer. I mean, no, they're real toys. But, okay, that's good. You can deflect if you really just don't understand what socialism is and what the difference between a market, socialist, capitalist, and communist society is. Don't talk about stuff if you don't know what it is. That's pretty much it. Everyone, I see it all the time. I'll go into like Facebook comments and someone will be like, socialism's ruining America. I'm like, can you name one person in Congress or the House or anything that's advocating for socialism? And they're always like AOC. Okay, AOC advocates for social democratic society. It's not socialism. Can you give Bernie Sanders? No, again. Bernie Sanders says that he does, but whenever I hear any of his policies, they all seem to be very, very social democratic. So the real question is, do you know anything about... Survey says, fuck no. Dude, you don't even know what socialism is. Socialism is the Democrat... It's bringing democracy to the workplace. There you go. That's how I'm going to phrase that. Bringing democracy to the workplace. It makes every single... If you have a market socialist society... It means... What's the difference between democratic socialism and socialism? Nothing. It's a social democracy versus socialism is, I think, what you meant, Tyler. So, when we talk about Cuba, North Korea... Cuba and North Korea? Yeah, no, you can include those. But, specifically, those are not market socialist societies. Those are controlled economies, right? What do they have in common? That they're controlled economies, which controlled economies are bad. Yes, I agree with you. Oh man, you know what? You're hyper intelligent, Scrub Lord. No, I just answered. The answer is controlled economies. They might be socialist, but if you had a capitalist society that had a controlled economy, it would fucking crash and burn too. Spectacular failure. Thanks. Good job, Scrub Lord. What's the difference between... Okay, going back to Tyler's question, what's the difference between social democracy and socialism? Social democracy means that we introduce welfare-esque programs. So, it can still be capitalist, right? It can still be a non-controlled market, but... there are going to be welfare programs to help support people who fall below certain thresholds and things like that. When we talk about socialism, we talked about forced worker cooperatives, which basically means every company, usually it's above a certain size, but everyone in the company has a stake in the company. The logic behind this is that no company can exist without its lower wage workers, so everyone should have some sort of say in how the company is run and what the wages of everyone in the company should be. Has been the greatest producer of wealth and prosperity, ever. Okay, first of all, no, because capitalism hasn't been around long enough for that to be true. Second of all, if you want to say in the amount of time that it's been around, okay, yes. But you could also make the same argument for monarchies. When capitalism and democracy were trying to flourish, but monarchy has saved the world from anarchism. Why would we ever move out of this glorious system? And that's what you have to overcome when you make that argument. I know that you are jealous. Sorry, I got skills. I mean, you can make that argument all you want, but I already said I'm not inherently socialist or capitalist, and I still don't think that you understand what a socialist society is. So. Anything else I didn't respond to? Or type faster, scrub peasant. Yeah, I know, I talk fast, sorry. So there you go. If you want to fuck up your country, go socialist. No, not go socialist, go controlled market. Controlled market is where most of these countries go wrong. The fact is, we have yet to see I know this is an internet meme, but the fact is we've yet to see a proper, non-controlled economy socialist country. The best example of this is to look at a sat photo of North and South Korea. Yeah, okay, you need to give me an example of a non-controlled economy. Do you know what a controlled economy is? Basically, it's when the state controls the production. So, you've probably heard this before. Socialism is when the workers control the means of production. When we talk about a controlled economy, I actually really don't know why there's not a more specific term for when governments control the means of productions. When we talk about a controlled economy, it's the government controls the means of productions. So the government decides how every company is going to be run. And that's closer to what China is. And I feel like when we say communism, we tend to think of that a lot more. But again, I don't know why the words get so blurred there. But socialism definitely is not inherently that. That's more of a controlled economy. Capitalism number 1, socialism number 10. Do you prefer fascist societies and monarchies and communism and controlled socialism and before socialism? Like, I don't understand. Virtually same people, but two very different systems. The results are startling. Yeah, but that's not just the economic system changing. That's also the political system. You have to remember that South Korea is also a democracy, whereas North Korea is a dictatorship. It's a totalitarian government. So what if we took that system, we'd have to take the economic system and put it into South Korea, and then it would probably still wouldn't work because it's still a controlled economy. What else you got? Dude, I'm not even to the point of being able to advocate for socialism. Yeah, you still just don't understand what it is. Just look at GDP comparisons between capitalist and socialist countries. Give me a socialist country that is not a controlled economy. And also, it's GDP per capita. That's what you need to look at. I can look that up if you really want me to. But, example. Yeah, so Cuba and North Korea has an almost entirely state-controlled economy. Literally, that's the first thing that came up. There aren't any other socialist economies in the world, so I can't give you one that isn't state-controlled, so I don't know how you can ever make this argument. Why? Dude, I'm gonna give you the same answer for almost every single one of your questions. Come on. Capitalism has failed every time that it's been a state-controlled economy, okay? Socialism has never not been a state-controlled economy. That's why. You could cite the USSR? No, because that was a state-controlled economy, so I actually don't care when we're talking about market socialism. You know, the USSR was... Wait, weren't they... Isn't there a difference? But anyway, they were state-controlled. So again, if the state is controlling the means of productions, I don't care. But also, I'm still curious. Do you understand that there's a difference between social democracy and socialism now? Are we understanding that the U.S. is not a socialist society and that we just have social programs? You can argue that the social programs are bad, and I'll tell you you're wrong, and I'll explain why, but... Wait. Okay, what would happen to homes under your system? I own a townhouse as a rental property. What would you do to my rental property? Nothing. First of all, you're saying under my system. I already told you I'm not inherently socialist. But socialism doesn't mean that we need to take all the wealth and evenly distribute it. That's not what market socialism is. Let's say you own a rental company. And you work by yourself and you rent out all those houses. When you go from a capitalist to a socialist society, literally nothing would change in terms of anything for you. But let's say you have employees that help you with that business. They would then have a stake in your company as we transition into a market socialist society, assuming that your company's big enough. So in other words, kind of like stakeholders work now in a capitalist society, but everyone is guaranteed a stake in the company that they work for. Above us, again, it depends where you want to draw the line. Above, like, I'm fine with if you're smaller than 10 people, I don't give a damn. But if you're 100 plus people, yeah, probably. Would be the way that it would work in socialists. Again, I don't necessarily think that there are advantages to that, but that would violate my company, my stock 100%. Under capitalism, That would violate corporate law. Yeah, guess what? The law would change if it was a socialist society. What do you mean? You asked me to explain how it would work. That's how it would work. You have to buy stock if I want to sell it. In a capitalist society, yes. But that's not how it works in a market socialist society. I'm telling you, that's what the difference would be. That's pretty much the only legislative difference. So you support theft on a monumental scale. I don't know how many times I need to say this. No, I'm not inherently a socialist. Also, that's one of my major problems with socialism. There would be civil war. You're right. It's almost like that's why we're not trying to impose that right now. But one of my biggest issues with trying to impose socialism today is how do you make that transition from a capitalist society where people have 100% stake in their own companies to a socialist society where you spread that stake out. That's very difficult. However, if we're talking about a brand new country springing up and they're trying to make the decision between capitalism or socialism, I don't see an inherent flaw in choosing either system. Because if you're going same way you go in knowing all the risks of your company, now, if you go in understanding the rules and regulations of a socialist society as you're starting a company, you have to go in with the understanding that, okay, once you get above a certain size, everyone's going to have a stake in your company. People will not willingly give up their company. There are a lot of things people are not willing to do, but they do it anyway because it's the law. So I don't think that's an argument. Ain't no countries just popping up. Yes, there are constantly. So I don't know. There are wholesale revolutions in countries constantly. So literally Russia's done it, 4 times in the past century? Germany's done it multiple times in the past century. Like, this happens constantly. It hasn't happened much since we've gone into the 21st century, but it happens. And if no countries are popping up, then guess what? I don't care if there's a transition into socialism or not. That's kind of my whole point, so thank you for arguing for me. In the USA, this is unrealistic. It's almost like I just said it wouldn't be feasible to introduce this into the United States. You're just repeating points that I've already made at this point. If you want to jump in Discord and actually have a conversation, I'd be more than happy to. Also, this whole there would be civil war thing, like, that's not an argument. There would be civil war. If the ends justify the means, it doesn't matter. So, for instance, people didn't use that as an argument for not ending slavery. People didn't go, but there'll be civil war. Well, no, I think people not being enslaved is more valuable than a civil war. I think that the hundreds of thousands of lives that were lost is justifiable to ending slavery. Oh, well, as commies go, you seem less harmful than most. Okay, alright, bud. But you never know. That's funny, because I never once advocated for socialism in this entire conversation. I just when I like to talk about economic and political systems, I like to be accurate in the information that I'm giving. And if you don't understand what you're talking about, maybe you should go research before you start talking about it. I don't understand how people are okay with just throwing constant straw mans that they've heard from politicians while never actually addressing any of the points of what social democracy, socialism, communism, fascism is. The amount of people who say that's fascist and have no idea what fascist is, I'm sure that pisses you off because lefties do it constantly and it's so fucking cringe. Every time I hear a lefty call fucking George Bush a fascist, I'm like, okay, what the fuck are you doing? Like, do you even understand what fascism is? And the way a lot of people like to dilute the definitions, it doesn't matter to begin with. So, Scrub Lord, I'll take that. You're not coming into Discord. I can continue on with the the trip down the alt-right. I think he already left. Man, that was a good time, though. I felt like my arguments were pretty coherent. Hope you learned something.
Away the concept of sex, right? And like prisons are probably the biggest example. You wouldn't want to put men and women in the same prison together. So it's one thing to say that people can identify however they want, but there's certain practical realities that you can't just ignore.
You know what? The prison one is actually a question that, like, I don't know how I personally would answer that. Olympic standard? Maybe go with the Olympic standard? For those of you who don't know, the Olympic standard is 2 years on HRT, and then you can compete in the opposite gender. But you have to be on HRT for 2 years before you can do that. I don't know if that's a perfect solution, because I think there are other problems that do arise, but, like, definitely when we're talking about prisons, I'm probably fine with the Olympic standard. If you're not willing to be on HRT, sorry, maybe you don't get to go to that other prison. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's the solution. Again, let me make that very clear. But if we put someone who... The problem is when we put someone who is trans into a prison that they don't belong in, there's a good chance they get discriminated against and basically murdered, which there shouldn't really be a death sentence for people going to prison, assuming we want a rehabilitative system, right?
Nor when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on the exact statistics around transgender inmates, but I'm pretty sure they kind of get the same treatment other criminals do, like very specific criminals that don't deserve to go to Gen Pop, or shouldn't say don't deserve, but
So I'm,
you know
I'm,
what I
not,
mean.
I'm not specifically talking about transgender criminals. I'm like let's start by saying we agree that men and women should be in different prisons, right? We can argue about what man and woman means later, but can we start by agreeing that we don't want them all in the same? Okay. So
I would love for people who identify as men to be placed only with men. Yes.
Well, right. So for you, it's how they identify. For me, it's what they actually are. So they're...
I don't know. I'm just going to say it again. The Olympic standard is what I'm going to go by, at least for now, until I think it through more.
That's where the disagreement is, but we do agree.
But, okay, wait. I forgot what this series is all about. What Steph is proposing, a lot of people are going to find super objectionable, and that's going to sway them away from the left. All right, sorry, go on.
That there needs to be separate prisons. So this is to my point, what I'm saying about this is where the problem with self-identifying comes in. Is like, are those rules rather put in place because we have good reasons why men and women don't belong together that have empirical biological realities to them, or are those rules put in place because of an ideological belief about what a man and woman, that people who identify a certain way shouldn't be held? You know what I mean? To me, it
Well, if
seems
it's
pretty
based off of
obvious
their
that it's the
gender.
first one.
If it's based off of their gender and you claim it's an ideology, then that would absolutely be the case. There's 100% differences. That's why we do have them in different areas.
Well, it's based off of their sex, though, I guess. That was what I would say.
Right, and historically we've long referred to gender, usually meaning to sex, especially in the case of legal documentation and things like that.
Right, and the reason is because, like, the men would be raping the women, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So if a man just says, well, I'm a woman, I want to go in the woman's prison.
Yeah. And I think this is about as far as the conversation's going to get, but... I don't know. I feel like that went pretty well, but obviously didn't get a lot of viewers. I want to know, Tyler, maybe you know, where would be a good place to find people advocating against... I want to do 4chan at some point, but I want to find a place where people advocate against socialism so I can shoot down strawmans, kind of like I just did for Scrub Lord. And I'm not sure of where people hang out. Is Freedom still going to be a thing? Trump's social media platform thing? Trump's social media. To launch President's Day. Ooh. Big boy move. What's it called? Truth, that's right. Truth. We are the truth? Is this it? Oh, Truth, that's the smoking thing, right? Truth Social, I think is what we have to look up. Yeah. Only available for pre-order on the App Store. No information as to when it's launching. This is a link, but it does nothing. Oh, it brings us to this site. But, yeah, I'm definitely interested in exploring this once it comes out. I don't think this will be as far right as, what's the other one that everybody used? Huh. Oh, is my cam glitching out? When it comes to socialism holes, I have no idea. Daily Wire probably has something. Don't make me touch Daily Wire, please. I can't stand Ben Shabibo. Alright, Tyler, I'm going to be hopping in Discord. If y'all could follow, I would greatly appreciate that. And I got to fix the lighting setup a little bit because I'm pretty damn red, but works for this one. Thanks for watching, y'all.